Cornwall is a place filled with legends, cryptids, and elemental beings. Piskies, mermaids, goblins, demons. And this is an isolated region, which is still somewhat remote to this day. And this particular yarn takes us to the little 15th century church of St. Mornan, of Mornan Smith, close to the entrance of the Helford River. A church was first built here in the 13th century, but before that, it was the site of what many say was a Celtic lan, an oval-shaped rampart, about 45 metres across, which could have been the site of an early Christian monastery. Everything stayed the same, peaceful, stable and usual, until 1920, when part of it was knocked down to expand the churchyard, and around 1924, when a huge load of Roman coins were dug up, around the same time the Owlman sightings started. On June 4th, 1926, two boys, in the area between Mount Hawke and Porthorwan, 14 miles from the village of Mornan Smith, were attacked by what they claim was a feathered flying creature with huge wings. They ran down the street, screaming and wailing, so much so that several adults came to their aid, and some even say killed the large creature, which was unlike anything they'd ever seen before. And maybe they didn't kill it, or if they did, there's more of them, because everyone has a generally definitive picture of the Owlman. People say it's over 5 feet tall, with large red glowing eyes, pointy ears, covered in brown-grey feathers, bar the legs, and the legs are bird-like, the feet aside, which are more like pincers than claws. At this point, we move forward to April 17th, 1976, 50 years later. Two girls, June and Vicky, were on holiday in Mornan Smith with their family, and they decided to spend the Easter holidays in the countryside near the church. Not a good idea. Late at night, they're wandering past the church, and suddenly, they saw a large man levitating above one of the church towers. But he had wings. Naturally, they ran screaming back to their parents, but it doesn't end there. On July 3rd, 1976, two other girls were camping near the church, and suddenly, around 10 p.m, heard a strange hissing sound. They went to check, and instantly came across what they described as an abnormally large bird, silver-grey in colour. The eyes were red and glowing. At first, I thought it was someone dressed up, playing a joke, trying to scare us. I laughed at it. We both did. Then it went up in the air, and we screamed. When it went up, you could see its feet were like pincers. It's true. It was horrible. A nasty owl face with big ears and big red eyes. And as if to make things better, or worse, the next day, another pair of sisters were spooked by the Owlman. Jane Goodman and her sister, on holiday, would describe the beast as being in the trees, standing like a full-grown man, but the legs bent backwards, like a bird's. It saw us, and quickly jumped up, and rose straight through the trees. My sister and I saw it very closely before it rose up. It had slanting red eyes, and a very large mouth. The feathers are silvery grey, and so are his body and legs. The feet are like big crab's claws. We were frightened at the time. It was so strange, like something from a horror film. After the thing went up, there were crackling sounds in the treetops for ages. Our mother thinks we made it all up, just because we read about these things, but that is not true. We really saw the Owlman, though it could have been somebody playing a trick in very good costume and makeup. But how could it rise up like that? If we imagined it, we both imagined it at the same time. And it hasn't ended there, because in 1995, a Chicago student living in England reported, "I'm a student of marine biology at the Field Museum, Chicago, on the last day of a summer vacation in England. Last Sunday evening, I had a most unique and frightening experience in the wooded area near the old church at Mornan, Cornwall. I experienced what I can only describe as a vision from hell. The time was 15 minutes after 9, more or less, and I was walking along a narrow track through the trees. I was halted in my tracks when about 30 metres ahead I saw a monstrous birdman thing. It was about the size of a man, with a ghastly face, a wide mouth, glowing eyes and pointed ears. It had huge clawed wings and was covered in feathers of a silver-grey colour. The thing had long bird legs, which terminated in large black claws. It saw me and rose, floating toward me. I just screamed, then turned and ran for my life. The whole experience was totally irrational and dreamlike. Friends tell me there's a tradition of a phantom owlman in that district. Now I know why. I have seen the phantom myself. Please don't publish my real name and address. This could adversely affect my career. Now I have to rethink my worldview entirely. And reports of strange going on in the area have continued. Floating lights, the feeling of a strange presence, another sighting in 2009, a hissing noise, the woods seeming to be charged with a strange energy. And even better, or worse, visitors to the Church of St. Mornan and St. Stephen have reported hearing a strange static-like noise coming from the woods. And the small back door of the church is often marked with small hand and fingerprints, which seem to appear and disappear at random. So what could the owlman be? Well, could it be a species or a creature? On the face of it, it looks to be a species, especially since there may be more than one of them. However, a species would require a substantial population, and there's no evidence that one exists, so it would have to be some kind of very rare, rapidly declining gigantic owl, or maybe a prehistoric relic that we don't know of. In addition, the strange static vibe, the change in energy in the atmosphere and the demonic presence make me feel as if this is an evil spirit, what some call a fairy, or a djinn, or a genie, or an elemental. A being of the unseen, composed of energy, built different to people, able to influence the environment around it, able to give us either positive vibes or negative vibes if it is positive or negative, due to its energetic composure. A creature that can take form at will, and in this case takes a particularly ominous one. So not a cryptid per se, but rather a person of the unseen form. I think its home was disturbed, and much as humans are, it was outraged. That ancient Celtic formation, it had maybe attached itself to that. It's said there's a ley line here, and some people believe these lines have energies that such beings feed on. Or maybe it was somehow attracted to the Roman coins, because entities do attach to objects, and hang around graveyards. In many cultures, disturbing once peaceful places will bring the wrath of these beings, who see you as violating their homes, so maybe this is it. In many Muslim countries, people refrain from randomly throwing boiled water outside or despoiling areas, not only because it's inconsiderate, but because it risks their retaliation. In addition, what makes me think this all the more to be a being of the unseen is the fact that this is not the first owlman encounter. In fact, the first ever owlman encounter is from 1798, in a Canadian settlement's diary. Once again, the creature is found within the church's grounds. His story tells of what he describes as a man, who had the ability to transform into a man-sized owl, and for years afterwards, people saw this Owlman of Canada. More than 100 encounters were logged in Ontario in the early 19th century. So are they related? And yes, this particular owlman also frequented graveyards, forests, came out after dark, avoided people, just like the beings of the unseen, feed on bones, and gain energy from them. Some people just think of the Owlman of Cornwall as nothing more than a Eurasian eagle owl, and if you didn't know anything about it, it might be a good fit. It's got the large wings, big scary eyes, and it's quite big. The problem is that the owl is nowhere near man's size. It's approximately 50 to 70 centimetres long, and has a wingspan of 2 metres, which is nowhere near a human's size. We're missing about 3 feet in that department.